For 1,000 cycles, the hegemony's protocol for conquest was simple. We arrive, we display our might, they surrender. So, when we turned our gaze to the mudball they called Earth, we expected the same tedious ritual. My name is Grand Admiral Kalen of the 3rd Hegemonic Fleet. It was my job to oversee the subjugation of this loud, chaotic little species, humanity. It was a job that would end my career and my civilization's entire understanding of the universe. We demanded they present their champion as a symbol of their submission, their designated warrior, the offering that would formalize their place as our newest vassal. Standing before me in the grand submission chamber of my flagship, the indomitable Will, the human ambassador, a short, tired-looking woman, gestured. A small furry creature was brought forward in a simple wheeled cage. It looked around, completely indifferent to the spectacle. The bridge of my ship, a place of silent, disciplined awe, suddenly filled with derisive laughter. This was their champion, this creature. We scoffed. We mocked them. It was the last truly confident sound the hegemony would ever make. Our process was flawless, refined over millennia. We didn't do costly ground invasions or planetary bombardments unless absolutely necessary. It's messy, inefficient. Instead, we practiced psychological dominance. The hegemony would arrive in a system, a fleet of blade-like ships so vast they'd eclipse the local star. We'd transmit our history, our power, our technological supremacy on all frequencies. We'd show them visions of obliterated worlds that had dared to resist, a display of cosmic finality, and then the demand. Every species, as a final act of their independence, had to present a champion for a ceremonial duel. This wasn't a real fight, of course. It was theater. Their greatest warrior would face one of my Praetorian Guard. The outcome was preordained. Their champion would fall swiftly and painlessly, and with that symbolic defeat, their spirit would break. Surrender always followed. It was clean. It was effective. It was our way. When we arrived in the Sol system, humanity didn't respond with the terror we expected. They responded with noise. Thousands of transmissions, a storm of arguments, music, pictures of their young, and something they called memes. It was a digital cacophony, a grating display of cultural chaos. We dismissed it as the panicked last gasp of a primitive race. I summoned their ambassador, a woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, and made the demand. "Present your champion," I commanded, my voice echoing in the chamber. "Show us the pinnacle of human strength, so that we may measure it. And you may know your place." She just nodded, a strange, weary smile on her lips, and said, "As you wish, Admiral." The next day, the chamber was filled with my senior officers, all of them eager to see the end of this absurd little drama. Ambassador Thorne stood in the center of the room next to a small metal-barred cage covered by a cloth. "Grand Admiral Kalen," she began, her voice unsettlingly calm. "On behalf of the unified people of Earth, we present our designated champion." With a flourish that felt both mocking and solemn, she pulled the cloth away. Inside, on a bed of straw, was the creature. It was no bigger than one of my tactical display drones. Covered in coarse black and white fur, it had a long, low body and short, powerful legs. It blinked slowly, looked at the assembled officers of the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, and let out a small yawn. My officers, beings who had seen the horrors of void space and the majesty of dying stars, started to laugh. It began as a low chuckle and swelled into open mockery. One of my sub-commanders, Vrex, a towering warrior from a species of natural predators, leaned in. "Is it a pet? A snack? What is this farce?" Ambassador Thorne's weary smile never wavered. "His name is Stompy," she said. "He is a Mellivora capensis. On Earth we call him a honey badger." The name meant nothing. The creature itself was an insult, a joke. It looked like a poorly designed toy, small, docile, and utterly unimpressive. This was humanity's champion, the best they had to offer. My communications officer was still chuckling as he ran a scan. "Admiral," he reported, trying to stifle his laugh, "vitals are stable. Minimal energy signature. No detectable psionic ability, no cybernetic augmentation, no advanced weaponry." I felt a surge of indignation. They weren't just surrendering. They were mocking us. "You waste my time, Ambassador," I growled. "This thing is not a warrior." "Oh, he's not a warrior," she agreed softly. "He's something else entirely." To punish their insolence, I decided to alter the ceremony. A quick, clean defeat was too good for them now. I would humiliate their champion. "Take the creature to the proving ground," I ordered. "Release the Vorlag." A murmur of surprise went through my officers. The Vorlag was a beast from a death world, a six-limbed monstrosity of muscle and chitin, armed with razor-sharp claws and a venomous bite. We used it to train our most elite soldiers. Pitting this tiny mammal against it wasn't a duel. It was an execution. We watched from the observation deck as Stompy's cage was placed in the center of the sand-filled arena. The opposite gate roared open and the Vorlag burst out, a challenge that shook the transparent armor steel of the viewport. The beast saw the tiny honey badger, paused in what I assume was confusion, and then charged. Ambassador Thorne stood beside me, her hands clasped behind her back, watching. Stompy didn't run. He didn't even seem to notice the 30-ton monster thundering towards him. He was busy trying to dig under the arena wall. The Vorlag was on him in seconds, one of its massive clawed limbs slamming down. But Stompy wasn't there. He'd moved with a speed our sensors barely registered. The Vorlag's claw hit empty sand. The honey badger, now behind the beast, did something incomprehensible. He attacked. He ran at the Vorlag's rear leg and bit it. It was like a fly biting a dreadnought. The Vorlag roared in annoyance and kicked back, sending Stompy tumbling across the arena. He hit the far wall with a sickening thud. My officers nodded. It was over. But it wasn't. Stompy got up, shook his head as if clearing away a minor inconvenience, and charged again. This time, when the Vorlag tried to grab him, something astonishing happened. The beast's claws closed around the honey badger's torso, but the creature's skin was so loose it twisted completely around inside the grip and latched its teeth onto the Vorlag's forearm. The Vorlag shrieked, a sound of genuine pain, and tried to shake him off. It couldn't. Stompy clung on, his jaws locked, relentlessly grinding. He wasn't just biting. He was disassembling. The laughter on my bridge had long since died. Now there was only a stunned silence. The fight lasted another 3 minutes. The Vorlag, a creature that had killed legions, was systematically dismantled by a 30-pound mammal that simply refused to stop. In the end, Stompy, covered in the Vorlag's green blood but otherwise unharmed, trotted back to where he started and resumed digging. Confusion and fury warred on my command bridge. My officers were replaying the footage, trying to make sense of what they'd seen. The creature's high density is anomalous, Admiral, one reported. Our scanners read it as soft tissue, but it deflected the Vorlag's talons. Its skeletal structure. It seems to absorb impacts that should have shattered it. Another chimed in. Its pain tolerance defies logic. It sustained multiple blows that registered as potentially fatal, yet its life signs barely fluctuated. This was impossible. It defied biology as we knew it. But arrogance is hard to shed. I didn't see a terrifying new variable. I saw a fluke, a trick. This creature was a biological freak that had won through sheer idiotic persistence, not skill. It had no concept of fear, no sense of self-preservation. It is an animal, I declared, my voice a low growl of conviction. A mindless beast. It has no strategy or honor, only brute tenacity. That won't be enough against a true warrior. My second-in-command, Commander Vrex, stepped forward. He was a Xylosian, a species renowned for their hunting prowess. He was the finest duelist in my fleet. Admiral, permit me, he said, his hand on the hilt of his plasma-edged blade. This farce has gone on long enough. I will face this pet. I will give it the swift end it should have received at the start and restore honor to this proceeding. I hesitated for a moment. Sending my top commander to fight a small mammal felt beneath us. But the insult needed to be answered. The unease on the bridge needed to be purged. So be it, I proclaimed. End this, now. Vrex entered the proving ground, his tall form casting a long shadow over the sand. He activated his plasma blade, its blue hum lighting his determined face. Stompy, brought back to the center of the arena, watched him approach with profound boredom. He looked at Vrex, then at the glowing sword, and let out an irritated hiss. Vrex charged, a blur of motion, his blade swinging in a perfect arc meant to decapitate the creature in a single, elegant stroke. But the honey badger just dropped to the ground, and the blade hissed through empty air. Before Vrex could recover, Stompy sprang forward, scrambling up the commander's armored torso like a squirrel up a tree. Vrex swatted at him, but it was like trying to catch smoke. Stompy was a whirlwind of black and white fur, claws, and teeth. He ignored the armor, targeting the vulnerable joints at the neck and shoulders. Vrex roared in frustration and pain, grabbing the creature with both hands and pulling it off him. He held it at arm's length, jaws snapping inches from his face. "Insolent vermin!" he bellowed, tightening a grip that could bend starship plating. And then, the impossible happened again. Stompy, held in a death grip, twisted inside his own skin. His body turned a full 180 degrees while his hide remained in Vrex's hands. His teeth found Vrex's wrist. There was a sickening crunch of bone. Vrex screamed, dropping both his blade and the badger. The blade deactivated in the sand. Stompy landed on his feet, shook himself, and charged again. This time he ignored Vrex and went for the fallen sword. He grabbed the hilt in his mouth and, with a flick of his head, somehow activated it. The blue plasma blade sprang to life. The creature now stood there, a small, furry mammal holding a weapon it had no right to understand. My bridge crew stared, silent, their faces masks of horror. The honey badger looked at Vrex, then at the sword, then back at Vrex. Then it charged, not swinging the blade, but holding the humming weapon out like a spear. The chaos that followed wasn't a duel. It was a butchering. The proving ground was a ruin. My finest warrior was gone. Stompy, the honey badger, stood in the center of the arena, nudging the deactivated sword with his nose, apparently bored with it. Then he sat down and began to groom himself, meticulously cleaning his paws, completely unconcerned with the carnage. A cold terror, colder than the void between galaxies, crept into my heart. We had met species with greater technology, with immense psionic power, with armies that blackened skies. We defeated them all, but we had never met this. This wasn't a weapon. It was a force of nature. It was the physical embodiment of a concept we had never considered. A creature that couldn't understand the possibility of its own defeat. Shaking, I turned to Ambassador Thorne. Her weary smile was gone, replaced by a look of something like pity.
What is that thing?
I whispered. She sighed. I told you, he's a honey badger. They're native to Earth. They hunt cobras for fun and have been known to pick fights with lions. They don't have a concept of overwhelming odds. They only have a concept of what they want and what's in their way. My mind reeled. Is this your ultimate weapon? I asked, my voice trembling. Is every soldier in your army like this? Her answer shattered my universe. She let out a small, tired laugh. Oh, heavens no, she said, shaking her head. Stompy isn't a weapon. He's a pet. He belongs to my 8-year-old niece. She calls him her cuddle muffin. She looked at the terrifying creature in the arena. Honestly, we were worried he might be too timid for this. He's not even considered a particularly aggressive one back home. She paused, then delivered the final, soul-crushing blow. We just thought he was the cutest. My fleet remains in high orbit. We haven't moved. We haven't issued a single command in 3 days. The demand for surrender has been rescinded. We simply watch and we wait and we feel a new emotion. Fear. Every report I've ever read on death worlds and apex predators is meaningless. Humanity didn't show us their strongest warrior. They showed us their capacity to befriend the impossible. They keep creatures like that as pets. What then are their monsters? What horrors do they keep locked away for a real fight? My final log entry as Grand Admiral is this: avoid Earth, avoid humanity, do not engage. We thought we were the galaxy's apex predators, but we just found a planet where the toddlers play with nightmares. We aren't the ones to be feared.